Back the Blue was sold as a principle. January 6 exposed it as a transaction. For years, conservative politics treated deference to law enforcement as a test of civic seriousness. When police departments defended violent tactics, resisted oversight, protected abusive officers, or concealed misconduct behind union contracts and qualified immunity, criticism was dismissed as hostility toward order itself. The public was told that supporting police required trusting their judgment, respecting their authority, and withholding condemnation until every procedural excuse had been exhausted. That indulgence often extended even to indefensible conduct. A civilian killed during a questionable encounter became a subject for forensic character assassination. A documented pattern of brutality became the work of a few bad apples. Demands for accountability were portrayed as attacks on every officer. Institutional loyalty required the public to absorb official explanations, however strained, because anything less supposedly endangered the people who stood between civilization and chaos. Then, on January 6, 2021, the people inflicting the violence were political allies. Approximately 140 police officers were assaulted while defending the Capitol, about 80 members of the United States Capitol Police and 60 officers from Washington's Metropolitan Police Department. They were beaten, crushed, dragged, sprayed with chemicals, struck with poles, and attacked with weapons ripped from police lines. Some suffered traumatic brain injuries and lasting psychological harm. These were not abstract representatives of a slogan. They were officers performing the most literal version of the duty conservatives claim to revere, holding a line against a violent mob and protecting a constitutional proceeding. Yet the movement that had spent years demanding maximal sympathy for police suddenly discovered an inexhaustible appetite for qualification. The assault became a protest. The rioters became tourists, patriots, or political prisoners. Injuries were minimized, testimony was mocked, and documented violence was dissolved into insinuations about provocateurs and selective prosecution. The same people who once treated criticism of a traffic stop as an assault on law and order treated an organized attack on police lines as an inconvenient complication. This is not inconsistency at the margins. It is a confession about what supporting law enforcement actually meant. The thin blue line was never an unconditional commitment to officers, institutions, or the rule of law. It was a partisan boundary. Police were honored when they enforced a preferred social order and discarded when they obstructed a preferred political outcome. Their authority was sacred until it stood between a loyal mob and the transfer of presidential power. Their injuries mattered until acknowledging them implicated the wrong people. That selective loyalty clarifies why so much conservative rhetoric around police misconduct has become impossible to take seriously. A movement cannot demand that the public presume good faith when an officer shoots an unarmed civilian, then presume bad faith when officers describe being beaten by a pro-Trump crowd. It cannot insist that resisting police justifies escalating force in one context while depicting sustained attacks on police as understandable exuberance in another. It cannot build an entire criminal justice philosophy around personal responsibility and then manufacture collective excuses when its own faction commits the crimes. Every familiar argument has been contaminated by the exception carved out for January 6. Appeals to officer safety now sound contingent. Lectures about compliance sound opportunistic. Claims that criticism encourages violence against police ring hollow when actual violence can be minimized for partisan convenience. Even legitimate arguments about staffing, training, morale, and public safety inherit the credibility deficit created by the spectacular abandonment. The damage is permanent because the contradiction cannot be explained away as a messaging error. It was repeated, deliberate, and politically useful. The movement was given the clearest possible test of its professed values: police officers defending an institution against unlawful force. It chose the attackers. That choice also degrades the officers themselves. It reduces their sacrifices to a transactional litmus test: valor when useful, irrelevance when inconvenient. An officer's bruises, broken bones, concussion, or trauma count only if recognizing them advances the approved narrative. Support becomes less a moral commitment than a reward for political alignment. No institution deserves immunity from scrutiny, and no badge converts misconduct into virtue. But anyone who defended abusive policing in the name of solidarity acquired a special obligation to stand with officers assaulted in the performance of their duty. Many failed that obligation precisely when it carried a partisan cost. January 6 did not reveal an insufficient devotion to law enforcement. It revealed that the devotion was counterfeit. The badge was respected as a symbol of authority, not as a public trust. The law was revered as an instrument, not as a restraint. And the officers were celebrated as long as they remained useful characters in someone else's politics. The moment they defended democracy from the wrong crowd, the thin blue line vanished. Thanks for watching. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. And feel free to follow me on Facebook at facebook.com/DerekDayMultimedia, Instagram at Derek E. Day, and TikTok at Derek E. Day.